Okay, so as with all of the other little patterns on this tutorial, you can make them any size you want. You just need a multiple of 6 stitches plus 3. The overlay mosaic's a little bit different, but that's explained in that video. But yeah, you've got a multiple of 6 plus 3 stitches. So for the purpose of the tutorial, I will be using 21 stitches. So I've actually got 22 chains here, so that's obviously one for each of the stitches, and then we need one at the beginning, which is a turning chain, so that one doesn't count. Okay, so a little tip, I usually like to work actually into the back of the chain. I just think, so rather than you probably usually work into this loop here, so I tend to just turn that chain over and work into the back loop there. It just gives a neater edge at the bottom. I'll show you that when I've done actually. Okay, so we're missing this first chain, so we start with a double crochet in that next chain, and then all we're going to do to start is work double crochet in every chain till we get to the end. Now when you get to the end, don't fasten off, wait for me there, oops, and I'll show you what we do next. There we are. So I'm now almost to the end of my first row. I've got 19 double crochets there, so number 20 goes into that back bump there. And when I started my chain, I should have probably mentioned before, I didn't actually start with a tight knot on there. It's kind of a loose one, so I always like to do my last stitch into that knot and then I pull the knot tight. It just gives a neater edge as far as I'm concerned. Okay, so that's the first row done. So now what we're going to be doing with Inset Mosaic, we actually work 2 rows in each colour. There's no sort of loose ends to worry about going up the side. You can just carry your unused colour up the side. So I'm going to start with 1 chain, turning chain, and the turning chains never count as a stitch. That is just as a way to get your hook up to the right height. So turning chain. So then all we're going to do for row 2 is a really simple row, double crochets all the way back again. Okay, so when you've done that, I will see you and we'll join the next colour and we'll start making our Inset Mosaic pattern. Okay, so with Inset Mosaic Crochet, we don't cut off high on. As I said before, we're going to be carrying the unused colour up the side. So what we now need to do, and actually a little general thing about mosaic crochet in general is the principle of it is that you'll be creating what looks like really intricate colour work designs, but you're only ever using 1 colour at a time. There's no fiddly changing colours within each row, so that's what makes it so addictive, I think. So anyway, to join a new colour, all we're going to do is just pull that loop in our new colour through there, so turn round. Okay, so I'm going to pull this one down there to close that up. If we just do our turning chain there, that's all held in place. And now what I'm going to do, there'll always be at least 1 double crochet at each end to sort of anchor. Okay, so I've just worked that over the top of this end there, so just to hold that securely until we actually sort of weave it in at the end. That'll just hold it in place. Okay, so we've now actually got 2 chains before the main repeat starts. 2 double crochets. Okay, so there we are through both loops. With Inset Mosaic Crochet, you don't worry about the front loop and the back loop as you would with overlay. All of the stitches will go through both loops. So we now start our main repeat, and that actually starts, the start of the repeat is another 2 double crochets. So far so very easy. So okay, now if you were looking at the chart, you'd probably see that you've got a little red, you've got a colour 1 square next. So what we do when you see that with an Inset Mosaic design is you need to leave a space to work the stitch in there to make that colour, if you see what I mean. So what we're going to do, we're actually missing one stitch. We're going to leave space for that. So what you do with Inset Mosaic, you always do 1 more chain than the number of stitches are missing. So we need to bridge over this single stitch that we're missing. So we're now going to do 2 chains. Okay, and then so we'll miss 2 chains. We're going to miss this stitch because that's going to be filled in when we come back and use the colour 1 again. So now the repeat is just ends with 3 double crochets. Really, really nice, easy repeat. Okay, so that is it. So now start the next repeat again with 2 double crochets. 1, 2, 2 chains, miss 1 stitch, 3 double crochets. So you'll have a little run of 5 double crochets and then a 2 chain space which covers over 1 missed stitch, if that makes sense. Okay, so there's our 5 double crochets, 2 chains, miss 1 stitch, and if you remember, our repeat officially ends with 3 double crochets. Then you should find you've just got 1 stitch left at the end of your row, and that will always be another double crochet. Okay, so that is row 3. So now what we need to do, we need to now turn and get back to the other end again. So turning chain, turn, and the wrong side rows on Inset Mosaic will always be the same. Wherever you see a stitch, now on this row they're all double crochets, but sometimes there will be some trebles, but every single stitch will have a double crochet in it. 2, 3, so we had 4 double crochets before, we've now got 4 again, and then where we've got our 2 chain space, we need to just do another 2 chain space. So I've done 2 chains, I'm going to miss these chains, and then we're working a double crochet into all of the stitches again. Okay, so on this row you're basically going to have 5 double crochets and a 2 chain space, so it's really basically the same as the previous one. Okay, so miss the chains, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 2 chain because we had 2 chain on the previous row, and then we're going to end with a double crochet in each of these 4 double crochets. Okay, so it's not a very exciting pattern so far, but we're actually now gonna be starting to create an actual design. So what we need to do is we now need to pick up our colour 1 again. So to do that, drop your colour 2, there they are, pick up colour 1, and we're going to basically pick it up in the same way as we joined colour 2 here. It's going to pull that through there, turn it round. Then what you want to do, we'll pull that one down, but you need to make sure, if I take that, we don't pull this yarn too tight. Okay, if you pull it too tight you'll just bunch up your edges, and we don't really want to do that. Okay, so leave that so it's nice and flat, pull your colour 2 one down there, then do your turning chain, and that will hold that all in place. Okay, so row 5 starts with 1 double crochet. Okay, and now we're going to do a slightly different repeat. So we start with 2 chains, which, as you'll probably remember, means we're going to be missing 1 stitch. Okay, then we've got 2 double crochets, 1, 2, and now we've come to a chain space. We've got nothing to work a double crochet in, so we know whenever we see the chain spaces we're going to have to work a treble, which is going to go in front of these chains into this stitch we missed down here. Okay, so treble in there, and make sure you keep your hook in front of those chains. It's very, very tempting to do that and work over, but if you do that, that will affect the way it looks on the front. It won't look as pretty on the front, so please always make sure your trebles are in front of the chain spaces. Okay, so that's that. So then we've got 2 more double crochets. Okay, so now we end our repeat with 2 chains and missing the next stitch. So there we are, that is our repeat. So now we start the next one again with 2 double crochets, 1 treble, again making sure you keep that hook in front of those chains, and then 2 double crochets. And you now know how to do Inset Mosaic Crochet. So 2 chains, miss 1 stitch, 1, 2 double crochets, and then we know we've got to do a treble 3 rows down. So actually I'll take you through that. So the reason I say 3 rows down, this would be 1 row, 2 rows, that's obviously the 3rd row down. Okay, so all of your trebles when you're making a pattern, the design in Inset Mosaic will always be 3 rows down. Then we've got 2 double crochets, and I'll repeat ends with 2 chains, miss 1 stitch, and that just leaves us 1 stitch on the end, which, as I've said before, will be always going to be a double crochet. We need that to like anchor the end of our rows. Okay, so we've now done row 5. Time to do the return row again. So as always, 1 chain, turning chain, turn it round, and then we've got a double crochet in every stitch. So there's that. We've then got a 2 chain space there, so remember 2 chains. Then we had our 2 double crochets before, so we're working a double crochet in each of those. And the next stitch is still a stitch, but there was a treble when we worked it on the other side, but we still need to make sure we do a double crochet into that. Okay, so that's that, and 2 more. So on this row we're going to have 2 chains, miss the chain space, and then we've got a run here of 5 stitches, so we're going to be doing 5 double crochets. So as I said, on the return row with Inset Mosaic, you always do a double crochet into every stitch, and you just match the chains. So do the same. If you've got a 2 chain space, you'll have another 2 chain space, and miss those chains. Crochet there. Okay, so you can see the back is basically stripes. So you'll see the pattern on the front, and the back will just be stripes of each colour. Okay, so now it's time at row 7, we've got to pick up our colour 2 again. So pull that through there, and again make sure you don't pull this too tight, but you do want to pull that one down. Okay, 1 chain, and then you've got your edge stitch. So now, as I've said before, you can see we've got the chain spaces there, so we know we're going to have to do a treble into this missed stitch. So there we go, 1 treble, 3 rows down. So now what we've got, this time we need to actually miss 2 stitches. So we're going to be doing 3 chains. As I said, you always do 1 more chain than the number of stitches you miss, unless you happen to chain really, really loosely. Most people chain a little tighter than they do the other stitches, which is why you do the extra one. But if you know that you chain quite loosely, or very loosely, then you can probably just get away with doing the 2. I say, my instructions will always assume that you need the extra one. So we've done the 3 chain. We're going to be missing, and you can make sure you can see there was our chain spaces. So there's 1, 2 stitches we need to miss. We're now going to work our double crochet into there, which is the middle one of those 5 stitches. Then we've got 1, 2, 3 chains, and we're going to miss those 2 stitches, and then we end or repeat with a treble 3 rows down. Okay, so that is our repeat. So now it's time to start again with 3 chains, miss 1, 2 stitches, 1 double crochet, 3 chains, miss these 2 stitches, and 1 treble 3 rows down. Oops, there we go. Okay, so I've got 1 more repeat to do on this tutorial, so that's 3 chains, miss 2 stitches, 1 double crochet, 3 chain, miss 2 stitches, 1 treble 3 rows down, and then you're fine. Carry on. If you're doing something wider, just carry on until you get to the end where you should have 1 stitch remaining, which as always is our double crochet. Okay, so there is row 7. Okay, so I'm just going to take you through the return row one more time. So 1 turning chain, and then remember it's a double crochet into every stitch and a chain over every chain. So on this row all of our chain spaces are 3 chains, and then you've got 1 stitch. So that's what we're going to be repeating across. 3 chains, miss the chains, 1 stitch. Okay, so be careful not to miss the trebles, because they can, as you can see, they can sort of hide behind the chains there, but make sure, there we are, that you're working into every stitch. So we've got 3 chains, miss the chain space, 1 double crochet, and repeat that all the way along. And then we end with our double crochet as an edge stitch. There we go. So that's row 8 done. So now it's a case picking up our colour 1 again and making sure we don't pull this yarn too tight, but pull that one down. There we go. Whoops. 1 chain. So row 9 is going to start with 1 double crochet. Then we've got 2 chains, which means we're going to be missing this stitch. And now we've got 2 missed stitches, so we've got to make sure we do our 2 trebles. So again, always keeping that hook in front of those chains, like so. Then 1 double crochet there, then 2 trebles, 3 rows down, 1, 2, then we've got 2 chains, miss that stitch. So that is now where our repeat ends. So there we go, that's our repeat, that goes like so. So now start the next one with, oops, need a bit more yarn to work with. Start our next one with 2 trebles, 1 double crochet, 2 trebles, and then 2 chains, miss 1 stitch. You can just carry on along the row like so. There we go, so that's what we look like after row 10, and I've just started row 11. I've picked up my colour 2 and done the first 2 stitches before the main repeat, which is 1 double crochet and 1 treble 3 rows down. Okay, so the repeat now starts with 2 double crochets, 1, 2, 2 chains, miss 1 stitch, 2 double crochets, and then we end the repeat with 1 treble 3 rows down there. Okay, so simple as that. Just go all the way along with 2 double crochets, 2 chains, miss 1 stitch, 2 double crochets, 1 treble 3 rows down. Okay, might as well finish. Okay, so here we are at the end of row 12. So obviously this is the wrong side. So we now flip this over. You'll see there we have our first full pattern repeat. So what we're now going to do is just carry on and repeat rows 5 to 12 until you get to the required height. Now for this tutorial I'm just going to do 1 more repeat, but obviously if you're doing something bigger you just keep going till you get to the height you want, and then we're just going to do something a little bit different on the end just to finish it off. Okay, but you're basically repeating from this row where you've done your trebles will go down there. In fact, we'll do that together. Just show you what I mean, how it starts. So let's pick up our colour 1, turning chain, then we've got 1 double crochet, 2 chains, miss 1 stitch, 2 double crochets, and then we've obviously got a pop because we've got the chain space, as we know we've got a pop our treble in there, 2 double crochets, 2 chain, oops, 2 chains, miss 1 stitch. So that's what we're going to be repeating across. So say that's your row 5, so carry on, repeat rows 5 to 12 until you get to the row to the height that you want, and then come back to me and I will just show you how we're going to finish this off. Okay, so here we are. I've now done 20 rows in total, so I've just repeated this first bit once more. Just want to finish it off to just make it a nice edge here. So nice and simple. You'll see I've already cut off my colour 2, so we don't need that anymore. I'm just now going to be using our colour 1 for the last time. So as always, just going to pick that up as we have been, 1 turning chain to hold that in place. And what I'm going to do, a bit like we did when we first joined colour 2 down here, if you remember. Oops, just going to take that end round. I'm just going to work the first couple of stitches over that just to hold it in place before we actually weave it in. And you will need to weave in your sort of 4 ends you've got in total here because you're using 2 colours. Okay, so I'm obviously double crochet through both loops, and on this row it's really easy. So on the second from last row we are just going to be working double crochets into every stitch, and then where we see our chain spaces we're going to be doing our treble 3 rows down. So there's no change, you're not adding any extra chains on this because it's just, we need a nice sort of simple flat end to our piece just to finish it all off. So we'll be back to the same stitch count that we started with. And actually, talking about stitch counts, what I should have mentioned is it's written in the pattern, but when it comes to the counting the stitches, you'll notice they're different sort of stitch counts for each row, and that will be because I don't count the chains as a stitch. It would just be too confusing to count the chains when you're missing 1 stitch but doing 2 chains. So I just completely ignore the chains, and when you see a stitch count, it's literally just the number of actual stitches. Okay, so obviously because we've got no chains on this last row, we'll be back to our 21 stitches. There we go. So just about to the end there, and then we've got our turning chain, so you'll just have 1 more wrong side row to do. So let's go back and do on the, so that's the right side, how it finishes, and just flip it over, and there we go, you'll get an idea. So that's what your back's going to look like. So yeah, just go back, do one more wrong side row, which will all be double crochets, and then you can fasten off, and that is your Inset Mosaic tutorial finished.